This ScreenFlow tutorial is designed to help instructors use Rubistar from the forteachers.org website to generate rubrics for use in the creation of standards-based performance assessments. There are several tools available to create rubrics. All that you really need is a grid to create a matrix upon, and the same product can be produced. I would recommend using Google Docs, Microsoft Excel, or even a basic drawing program that allows you to create boxes and insert text into them. I'll be using Rubistar simply because it is the fastest and provides preset layouts based on the criteria you want to use. To get started, you'll need to have three things in mind: your categories, your scale, and your criteria. The categories will be clear once you've stripped the standards used to create your performance objective. These are the actions and skills you expect to see demonstrated during the performance activity. Next, you must choose a scale. Many people use a 4 or 6 point scale. This is based on the scoring and point value system in your educational setting. Finally, you have to define the criteria that you want to use to evaluate the categories you've chosen. Many people get worried at this point because the task can seem so large. I'd suggest using Rubistar to simplify the task as well. If you create a free account, you can save and reuse old templates and their criteria for faster rubric creation later, as there may be things you've already assessed that are similar. For the ScreenFlow today, I've chosen to use the following categories for criterion: divide numbers, multiply fractions, scale objects, make equations, and divide fractions. I'll be using a 6-point rubric scale because Michigan Standardized Testing, my home area, uses 6 points as the most frequent choice on standardized assessments. Finally, I've created the highest level achievement for each of these 6 categories. I've got that in a text editor waiting off to the side, and I performed all the work ahead of time. I can copy and paste that into the Rubistar tool. To speed up the process, if you're familiar with the rubric design, you can create all the criteria ahead of time to make the text editing a lot easier. Now that we have everything ready, we can go to rubistar4teachers.org to begin. If you have an account, you can log in here. It's a little different than most authentication layouts, so you may want to store your credentials someplace for retrieval. Now, if you have an account, once you log in, you're going to see that you have a list of all the ones you've saved in the previous incarnations or what you've made before. But to start a new rubric, you can go to Create Rubric up here at the top. From there, you can see all the other ones that are available. You have options to search the rubric library or start a rubric from scratch, which is down here at the bottom. While there's a lot of rubrics here, most of them are not standards based, so we're going to have to build from the ground up. So we're going to go down here and click Create a brand new rubric. First, they ask us for the rubric title, then the number of columns across. Don't add a label box because it does that for you. After all that, they're going to ask you if you want to make this a temporary or permanent rubric. That gives it a self-destruct date. In our case, we're going to keep it permanent, so we can come back to it. I'm going to call this fraction computation. And we're going to choose 6 columns across because that's what our grading criteria said. And I'm going to keep it permanent instead of giving it a date to end. Once that's done, click on the big shiny arrow button and you can move on to the next step. Now, what you see over here on the right hand side is where we're going to be doing most of our editing. The first one says edit columns, the second one says edit row names. It's a little confusing because you actually have to go to edit rubric row names first to move on to the editing columns. So you're going to select that pink button, and this brings you to your basic row naming sequence here on the right, on the left, and then you can go ahead and add those in. In my case, I've already got those typed in my text editor, so I'm just going to copy and paste right into the space provided. Now you'll notice they give you plenty of boxes to do this in. If you wanted to have more, you can actually add more at the bottom. You do not need to stick to 5. I've just chosen 5 for this activity because the assignment I've created for the site has 5. Alright, once you've added your rows, it's going to give you some options to move these things around. If you'd like to move the pieces around, you can just select the up and down buttons or take them off completely by selecting delete. And then you can hit the update button again to make sure that they're where you want them. Once we're done with that, we can go on to columns. And this is where you're going to put in the names for your different pieces. The columns can be given a better idea of what scale you're going to use. In my case, I can set exceptional as a 6, 4 and 3 could be acceptable, and a 1 could be unacceptable. In this case, you have to know that you're going to go from high to low, and that's what's important. In my educational setting, we expect our students to master content, so I'm going to actually start with a 6 as mastered, and everything else has to be listed as developing. And I can put the numbers at the front of those or at the back of those, depending on what you'd like to do. Once you have those in, you can go ahead and click the submit button. Once you've edited and placed all of your column headings in and everything looks the way you want it, it's all centered the way you'd like it and titled correctly, you can go ahead and click on edit rubric navigation or edit the title and description again or preview the rubric. In this case, we're going to go ahead and go to edit rubric contents. Now this is where you're going to actually put in your criteria. In that case, we're going to go over to the list where I've already created these. I've got them all written out already for myself. And I can now place these in the boxes shown on the left just by copying and pasting. So my top one is my 6. And drag and drop that right into place. Alright, once you've got all the criteria in and you know exactly what you want it to look like, you can get rid of that text header. You don't need that anymore. You can go ahead and review it, check for any spelling errors, problems, mistakes, or anything. You can check those again later on, but you might want to check it here. You have about 40 minutes to work on the page before it's done. That's why you want to do that work offline ahead of time. That's kind of important to note. You don't want to lose the work in the middle of it, so you want to make sure you give yourself enough time to get it completed. If you click the reset button, it's going to clear the box and you'll have to put the data back in again. Once you've got it the way you like it and everything looks correct as far as the titles, the labeling, and everything else that you had in mind. Oh, I see a mistake right there. I'm going to change that to not mastered, not developing. You can go ahead and click again the big shiny button at the bottom to submit. And now you get a preview of what this looks like. You also get, more importantly, this rubric ID up here at the top. You want to have access to that again because at the first page of a login, anybody who wants to can actually search for your rubric and pull it up that way instead of having to start up an account or get started any other way. It also says you can click here or print or view your completed rubric. That's possible as well. You'll also notice it as your name at the top and a space for a student name. At this point, you can actually change something. If there's something wrong, you can change the labels or change any other features just by clicking back here in the navigation area again. And that will allow you to go back to any of the areas to get everything right and clean it up. At this point, you've got a couple options. You can actually go ahead and hit that link to print, or you can go to edit again and change things, or preview the rubric. In this case, we're going to go ahead and preview the rubric. See what it looks like there. You'll notice the rubric does not have a number on it here, so you want to make sure that you've got that number from the previous page written down and you don't lose it. Now, the other thing you can do at this point is click that print button and you get a bunch of options across the top here. If you still needed to make adjustments or edit the rubric, you could go back here right at the edit button. If you want to preview the rubric using the ID, of course, you want to keep that rubric ID handy. And you'll notice there that it says you can make this rubric interactive. You can actually analyze the rubric. If you click that link, what it does is it gives you an option to actually fill in the scores that they've got, and you can compute and add results here at the top to analyze the rubric and how well the kids are doing on the assessment pieces you've got in mind. It's a little time consuming, but it is very valuable as well. The next one you see here is this print page, and you want to watch that one. You want to stay away from that probably because it actually will print the page just as it is formatted here. It's a little bit off-centered and it doesn't look very good when you actually print. The one you're actually going to want to use is this one that says Save Rubric. And when you hit Save Rubric, what you get is a bunch of options again to print, and this will be a real print that will give you only the window that you were working in. The other thing you get is an offline browser document piece, which has, as you can see, the dated pieces here for embedding into a web page or adding to a web page you want to use. We are going to probably want to download as an Excel spreadsheet if we want to use it for embedding or putting in any other document. My recommendation would be that you can actually download this and then upload it back into Google Docs to embed it into a website or any other site that you're using. That's how you get around not having an embed feature right here on Rubistar. As you can see by the logos, though, this tool is very dated. It's out of date, but if it's not broke, don't fix it. And this one's been around for quite a while. So there's just about every need, with the exception of the embeddable code and the interactive cells. If you wanted to save this out for an interactive cells, like I said, I would use the Google Docs and do that. You need to make sure you backdate it to a 2004 Microsoft Excel version so that it can be readable and uploadable to the Google Docs site, but then you could actually embed it just like you would any other embedded document to be edited or changed. That's all there is to it, and I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial of Rubistar. Feel free to contact me at romwar2@fullsail.edu. Be happy to answer any questions and address any concerns you might be having. 4teacher.org also has several other tools you might be interested in. They have a whole stack of tools that are made and available for free to teachers who are trying to speed up things in a classroom and use technology in unique and innovative ways. Again, if you'd like to contact me, you can reach me at romwar2@fullsail.edu. And if you go to the main page on the Rubistar website, you'll also find a tutorial walkthrough that will guide you through all the steps I've labeled here and actually walk you through the process of setting up an account as well.